A hand-stitched baby blanket, soft flannel, pastel threads, little elephants and giraffes peeking through clouds. It took me nearly 2 weeks to finish it, hunched over at the kitchen table every evening after work. My fingers ached, but the pain was worth it. It was for her, my only daughter, Melissa, my baby, who was now about to have a baby of her own. I wrapped the blanket with gold ribbon, tucked it into a gift bag with a handwritten card, and placed it by the door, waiting for the invitation to arrive. It never did. At first, I thought maybe the mail had been delayed. Or maybe it was a digital invite and I'd somehow missed the text. So I checked my phone. I refreshed my email. Nothing. I waited another day and another, and then, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, sipping lukewarm tea in my recliner, I opened Facebook and saw it. Melissa was glowing, wearing a white lace maternity dress. One hand on her round belly, the other holding a pink mocktail surrounded by rose gold balloons and pastel streamers. There were tiny signs everywhere. It's a girl. Welcome, baby Ava, mommy Tubi. They were all there. Everyone, her friends, her husband's mother. It's the same cousin who used to borrow my car when she was in college. The women. From Jason's side of the family, I barely knew, but apparently now knew Melissa better than I did. And me. I wasn't even a footnote. The caption read, "So grateful to my village, couldn't have asked for a more magical day." Magical. I stared at that word. Let it burn into me like a scar. My tea sat untouched. The living room was too quiet. The clock ticked loud, cruel, and inside my chest a hollow kind of ache started to bloom. It wasn't just that I hadn't been invited, it was that I'd been deliberately left out. I picked up the phone, dialed her number. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I didn't trust my voice not to crack. Instead, I texted. Saw the baby shower pictures. Hope you had a beautiful time. Love you. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. And finally, it was more of a casual thing, Mom. Just a small group. I didn't want to make you feel out of place. Out of place? I laughed out loud. A bitter, aching sound that didn't sound like me at all. How was a mother supposed to feel? Out of place at her own daughter's baby shower. I raised her alone. Worked double shifts as a diner waitress so she could go to that fancy private school. Sold my wedding ring to pay her first semester of college. I stood in the back of the crowd when she got her degree, clapping so hard. My palms stung, and now, somehow, I didn't fit into this picture-perfect life she had built. I looked down at the gift bag by the door. The ribbon still glimmered under the afternoon sun. Later that night, I sat on the edge of my bed and opened an old shoebox from my closet. It was full of old photos, Melissa in pigtails holding a teddy bear. Melissa's first Halloween costume, a bumblebee I sewed myself. Melissa at prom, cheeks flushed, clutching flowers. There was even a photo of the 2 of us at her college graduation. She looked so proud. I did too, even though my dress was 2 sizes too big and secondhand. I ran my thumb along her face in the photo and whispered, "When did I become a stranger to you?" Tears welled up, but I refused to let them fall. Not this time. I placed the photo back and closed the box, and that's when the thought came. Not loud, not angry, just clear. If I wasn't welcome at her shower, maybe I'd host my own. The morning after I saw the photos, the sun felt like an insult. Bright, cheerful, oblivious to the war quietly raging inside me. I stood at the kitchen counter, staring blankly into a bowl of cereal I had no intention of eating. Outside, the neighborhood buzzed with a normal Sunday. Lawnmowers humming, kids riding bikes, someone walking a golden retriever down the block, and me. I was replaying everything. Melissa's message haunted me. Didn't want you to feel out of place, as if I hadn't stitched myself into every corner of her life, as if she had been raised by someone else. The worst part wasn't the party. It was the silence that followed. No apology, no check-in, not even a second text to explain what casual meant. I would have preferred anger. Anger is loud. Anger wants to be heard, but silence Silence just shuts you out and keeps you there. I needed air, so I slipped on my sneakers, grabbed my cardigan, and walked. No destination, just forward. My steps took me past the grocery store, past the library, past the same park where Melissa used to run barefoot through the grass as a toddler, sticky from POPSICLEs. It hit me how long it had been since we'd been there together. I sat on a rusted green bench near the swings and watched a young mother push her child gently back and forth. They were laughing. Her baby reached for her babbling nonsense, and she leaned forward and kissed his forehead. A wave of longing gripped my chest. I wanted that. Again, a do-over. A chance to hold my daughter's child and feel like a part of her life, not some relic she'd packed away like an old yearbook. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear landed on my wrist. When I got home, the baby blanket still sat by the door, a quiet, wrapped reminder of what I wasn't allowed to give. I thought about throwing it away, about boxing it up and sending it off to Goodwill. But I couldn't. That blanket held love, hours of it, and I wasn't going to let rejection erase the time I spent making it. And that's when the idea became a decision. I was going to celebrate not for Melissa, not for the baby, not for anyone else. For me, I grabbed a notebook from the drawer and scribbled across the top in bold letters. My shower. I underlined it twice. Then I began listing names. My friend Cheryl from church, she'd watched Melissa grow up. Dorothy. My old neighbor who still sent me Christmas cards. Margot from the salon who always asked about my daughter when trimming my hair. They'd all shown more interest in this baby than Melissa had ever shown in, including me. And then, in the bottom margin, I wrote something bold. Something I hadn't allowed myself to believe until that moment. I still matter. The next few days were a whirlwind. I reserved the small room at the community center, the one with the blue curtains and long folding tables. I baked lemon bars and chocolate chip cookies from scratch. I picked out pink streamers and handmade centerpieces with little butterflies. I even printed baby trivia cards I found online. Did you know newborns can recognize their mother's voice from birth? It felt like I was pouring parts of myself into something tangible again. And with every detail I added, the ache inside me softened. Melissa still hadn't called. No updates, no explanations, no regrets. I saw her post a photo of a new nursery. Set online a Cloudmobile and a white bassinet. She looked beautiful, radiant. But I didn't cry this time. Instead, looked around my modest kitchen filled with the scent of fresh cookies and soft pink decorations, and I smiled. Because I was reclaiming something that had been taken. Not the invitation, not the shower. My dignity. I arrived at the community center an hour early, holding 2 trays of lemon bars and my breath. The little event room looked exactly how I remembered it, from bake sales and PTA night, scuffed tile floors, faded yellow walls, and the faint scent of floor polish and old coffee. But I'd transformed it into something else, something soft. Hopeful pink and white streamers danced from the ceiling fans. Paper butterflies perched delicately on every napkin. Each table held a mason jar filled with fresh tulips from the Sunday market. And right at the front sat the centerpiece of it all, the crocheted baby blanket, folded carefully atop a white gift table I'd covered with lace. I stepped back and let it settle in. It wasn't grand. It wasn't Instagram-worthy, but it was mine, and it was honest. Cheryl was the first to arrive, wearing her floral church dress and a beaming smile. "Oh, you went all out, didn't you?" she said, hugging me like a sister. "I did," I replied. "I figured someone should." Dorothy came next, bringing sugar-free cookies and stories about how Melissa used to pull weeds in her yard for quarters. Then Margot walked in bright red lipstick and a pink gift bag in tow. "This is adorable," she gasped, taking it all in. "You should have seen the one I went to last weekend. Sterile, like a hospital waiting room. Yours feels like home." Home. That word nestled right into the hollow space beneath my ribs. We laughed. We sipped sparkling punch from tiny plastic cups. We played silly games like Guess the Baby Food and Who Knows Grandma Best. And they listened, really listened, when I told them I wasn't invited. There was no judgment-only quiet outrage. Unbelievable. Cheryl muttered, fanning herself. She's gonna regret that one day, Dorothy said flatly. I'd be proud. To have a mother like you, Margot added. Her voice cracked a little. That did me in. I stepped outside for a moment, pretending I needed fresh air. In truth, I just needed space to cry without anyone seeing. Because sometimes kindness is the thing that breaks you. As the afternoon stretched on, we took photos, cut cake, and passed around the soft blanket I'd made. Each woman touched it like it was sacred. She's lucky, Cheryl said, folding it back up. Whether she knows it or not. I nodded but said nothing. I didn't want to ruin the spell. But inside I wondered, was she lucky? Or had I raised a daughter who thought strength meant distance? Who mistook independence for cutting cords? Who believed love should be silent, invisible? By the time the sun dipped below the trees, everyone had gone. Hugs were exchanged. Leftovers. Packed compliments whispered in that gentle way older women do when they're trying to give you something more than words. I stood in the doorway, watching the empty parking lot glow under soft orange street lamps. The building was quiet again, but I wasn't, because in a room meant for someone who never showed up. I had finally shown up for myself. I packed the leftover cookies into a box and placed the baby blanket on the passenger seat beside me, buckled in like a tiny unseen guest. On the drive home, I passed Melissa's favorite coffee shop, the one I used to take her to after piano recitals. I slowed the car but didn't stop. There was nothing for me to chase anymore. When I got home, there was a voicemail waiting on the landline. My stomach tightened. Melissa, I pressed play. Beep. Hey, Mom, it's Aunt June. I saw your photos, the ones from the shower. They were beautiful. I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. And I think Melissa saw them too. Just thought you should know. Click. I stared at the phone for a long while, unsure whether to feel angry or exposed, or simply relieved that the truth had leaked through. Had she seen them? Had she noticed? Would it matter? I looked at the baby blanket again. I had my answer. It didn't need to matter because I mattered. 3 days passed, 3 quiet. Tiptoeing days that hovered over me like clouds too heavy to burst. I moved through the hours as though nothing had shifted. I watered the porch plants. I folded laundry. I crocheted a little blue bonnet, even though I didn't know the baby's gender yet. But every time the wind hit the wind chime outside, I turned, hoping. Every time the phone rang, I startled. I told myself I wasn't waiting, but I was. On the 3rd afternoon, it rained again fat. Steady drops that turned the garden path to a glistening stream. Stood at the kitchen sink watching. The bird bath overflow when I heard it. Knock, 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 dot, soft, uncertain. Not the up sky. Not a neighbor. And definitely not someone selling solar panels. I dried my hands slowly and walked to the front door when I opened it. Melissa was standing there, hair pulled into a messy bun. One hand on her round belly, the other holding a plastic grocery bag. She looked like a child, again small, nervous, soaked from the rain. My heart paused. Then it ran. Hi, Mom, she said, voice low. Can I come in? Stepped aside. She walked in, dripping water onto the rug. Her eyes scanned the house same as always. It's a sunflower painting in the hallway. It's a crochet shawl on the arm of the couch. My pink slippers by the heater. This place hasn't changed, she murmured. No, I said softly. I suppose I haven't either. She blinked at that, but didn't argue. Instead, she pulled a Tupperware from the bag and handed it to me like a peace offering. I brought the lemon bars, she said. Your recipe. I didn't know what else to bring. I stared at the container. The edges were lumpy, the powdered sugar uneven. I opened the lid, broke off a corner, and popped it into my mouth. Dry. Too much zest. But sweet enough. I swallowed. They're not bad, I said. She smiled, relieved. We sat on the couch, knees close, 1,000 words between us. She glanced at the baby blanket draped over the armrest, the one from the shower. I saw the photos, she said after a while. They were beautiful. They were real. She nodded, eyes wet. I didn't plan to leave you out, Mom. I really didn't. It's just, I didn't know how to include you. Everything between us has felt so complicated for years because you made it complicated. The words came out colder than I intended, but I didn't take them back. I was done softening the truth, just to keep from cracking her comfort. She didn't flinch. You're right, she said. She took a deep breath, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. When Dad left, she began, you were so strong, so focused. You worked 2 jobs, came home with blisters, and still managed to sew Halloween costumes and cook meatloaf and memorize school projects. I nodded. That was the job. But I think I resented you for it, she whispered. I thought you were trying to be perfect, like you didn't even need him, or me. My chest tightened. You think I wanted to need no one? I know better now, she said quickly. I guess I pulled away because I didn't know how to. Match your strength. I thought if I kept you at a distance, I could protect myself from disappointing you. I exhaled. Long, shaky. Melissa, I was never disappointed in you. I was scared that I'd done too much or not enough. That I'd loved you so hard you mistook it for pressure. She reached over and took my hand. I didn't invite you to the shower because I was ashamed, she said. Not of you, of how far apart we'd grown. I didn't want people asking questions about our relationship. I couldn't explain it. And now? I asked, she squeezed my fingers. Now, I don't care what anyone thinks. I want my baby to know their grandmother. It's the one who crochets blankets and makes lemon bars. It's the one who held our family together with duct tape and prayer. We sat in silence. The rain softened to a mist. Then she added, there's something else. I waited. I told people at the shower that I wished you were there. I think part of me hoped you'd show up anyway. My laugh came out like a cough. I'm not the Stormthaw Castle type, honey. That ship sailed long ago, I know. But you showed up in your own way. Her eyes drifted to the framed picture on the mantelme, holding a baby Melissa. Both of us mid-dash laugh, then to the blanket. I want you to come to the hospital when the baby's born, she said. I want you to be the first to hold them. After me, I swallowed the ache in my throat. I'd like that. Before she left, she asked for a copy of the lemon bar recipe. A real one, not the old stained index card. I wrote it out on new paper, added a note at the bottom. Use less zest next time. Trust me, she laughed. Then she hugged me. Not a side hug. It's not a stiff, polite one. A deep, breathless, arms around the soul kind of hug. I'm sorry, Mom, she whispered into my shoulder. I know, I said, holding her tighter. Me too. When the door shut behind her, I stood still for a long moment, listening to the silence. But this time, it felt like peace. Not absence, not rejection, just space making room for something new to bloom. It's strange how a single conversation can change the texture of time after Melissa's visit. The days that followed moved differently, no longer dragging or twisting with resentment. I moved through them with a quiet anticipation. Like the hush before spring, I washed the little bonnet I'd crocheted, just in case. I pulled out the crib set from the attic, the one Melissa herself had slept in, stored away in plastic wrap for years. I ironed the edges of the blanket I never gave her at the shower. This time, I folded it with purpose, not pain, because now I knew it would be received a week later. I got the call at 2:14 a.m. Mom, Melissa said, breathless. It's happening. My water broke. Okay, honey, I said, sitting straight up in bed, heart already racing. Is Eric driving you? Yes. We're headed to the hospital now. Can you meet us there? I was already halfway into my jeans. I'm on my way. I didn't care that my hair was frizzy or that my shoes didn't match. I didn't care that the world was asleep while I was wide awake, charging through the rain-soaked streets like a soldier answering a long-awaited call. For the first time in a long time, I belonged. The hospital was humming with that peculiar energy, bright lights and tired nurses, the smell of antiseptic and hope. I found Eric in the waiting room, pale and anxious, legs bouncing like a motor. "She's in room 212, he said. "They won't let me back in yet." "She'll be okay," I told him, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "Melissa's tough." He gave a half nod, clearly trying to hold it together. We sat in silence, sipping bad coffee and watching muted news on the TV above the vending machine. I clutched the baby blanket in my lap, fingers running over every loop and twist of the yarn like a rosary dot. It had taken me over 40 hours to crochet, but the waiting felt longer. By mid-morning, a nurse finally poked her head out. "Eric, Grandma, we both shot up. You can come back. The baby's here." I didn't breathe. Not until I saw her. Melissa was in the bed, eyes heavy but glowing. Her hair was damp, her cheeks flushed. And in her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in white dot. My granddaughter, my knees nearly gave out. "Oh," I whispered. "Oh, she's perfect." Melissa looked up at me, eyes soft. "Want to hold her?" I nodded. I couldn't speak. My hands shook as I reached out, cradling the weightless miracle against my chest. She was warm, fragile, a tiny nose, button mouth, one wrinkled hand twitching near her cheek. I kissed her forehead before I even thought about it. "She smells like heaven," I said. Melissa laughed quietly, adjusting her blanket. "We named her Clara." She said, "Clara," I repeated, tasting the name like a prayer. "Beautiful middle name's Evelyn. After you." I looked up, stunned. "You didn't have to. I wanted to," she said, "for everything." There was so much in that moment I wanted to say. That I was proud of her. That I had forgiven her long before she'd even asked. That every missed moment didn't matter now because this moment held enough weight to balance the scale. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out the soft, butter yellow baby blanket. Melissa's breath caught. "I was going to give it to you at the shower," I said, "but I suppose this is better." She nodded, eyes shining. "Much better." She took the blanket and gently wrapped it around Clara, tucking in the corners like she'd seen me do with her once upon a time. A full circle moment, swaddled in yarn. The nurse returned to do some checkups, and Eric joined Melissa's side. I gave them space, stepping out into the hallway. I leaned against the cold wall, eyes closed, just letting the moments sink in. Then I heard a voice behind me, double quotes, "Mrs. Hampton." I turned. It was another nurse, young and cheerful. "Melissa asked if you wanted to stay the night. We can bring in a chair, maybe a blanket." I blinked. "She wants me to stay," she insisted. I nodded, swallowing the sudden lump in my throat. Yes, I'd love to. That night, the hospital quieted. Lights dimmed. The hallway buzz softened. I sat beside Melissa, who had drifted off with Clara on her chest. I pulled the blanket a little higher over both of them. Then I pulled out my phone and opened my photo gallery. Swipe, swipe, swipe. Photos from my own baby shower. While the decorations. I had arranged the little cupcakes I made. The welcome banner I'd hung alone. Back then, those photos had felt like proof of pain. Now, they felt like strength. I tapped the screen and uploaded them to Facebook. Caption: "Sometimes we throw our own celebrations when others forget." But today, I watched my daughter become a mother. And I finally got to give her the blanket I made with love. "Welcome to the world, Clara Evelyn. You were worth every stitch. Bye." Morning, the post had gone viral. But I didn't care about that. I only cared about the way Melissa reached for my hand as the sun rose and whispered, "Mom, I'm glad you stayed." And I smiled, squeezing back. I never left. 2 weeks. After Clara was born, I stood in my kitchen, piping swirls of pale pink frosting onto vanilla cupcakes. My hands moved slowly, deliberately. like I was weaving joy into every corner of sugar. The sunlight poured in through the lace curtains, casting a warm glow across the counter cluttered with plates, serving trays, fresh flowers, and a paper banner I had made with glitter letters. "Welcome, baby Clara." Melissa didn't know what I was doing, not yet. She thought she was just coming over for a quiet lunch, little breather from sleepless nights and diaper changes. But I had something else in mind, because while I may have missed her baby shower, I had no intention of missing this chance to celebrate her. Our new chapter, the doorbell rang just before noon. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and walked over, heart pounding like a teenager about to ask someone to prom. I opened the door to find Melissa holding Clara, bundled in a soft peach onesie with ruffled sleeves. "Hi, Mom," she said, shifting Clara on her hip. "Hi, sweetheart. Come on in." She stepped inside and paused, her eyes immediately catching the decorations, the twinkle lights around the archway, floral garlands I'd made from silk blooms, and the dessert table bursting with cookies, tea cakes, cupcakes, and lemonade in mason jars. "What is all this?" she whispered. "Just a little something I wanted to do," I said, brushing a stray hair behind my ear, "to welcome Clara and to celebrate you." Melissa's eyes shimmered, and she swallowed hard. "I didn't think—" "I know," I said softly. "But you deserve this, Melissa. You always did." Soon the doorbell rang again. One by one, a few close friends arrived. My bridge club ladies, our neighbor Miss June, and even Angela from the library, who had always adored Melissa growing up. They brought gifts wrapped in soft pastel paper, tiny dresses, books with messages scribbled inside like, "To Clara May, you always be as fierce as your grandma." We kept it small, warm, and full of laughter. Clara was passed from arm to arm, each woman cooing and bouncing her gently. Amazed by how peaceful she was, though I knew from Melissa's tired eyes that it hadn't always been that way at 3 a.m. Still, today she slept like a charm. Like she, too, sensed the tenderness in the air. After lunch, I gathered everyone in the living room. Melissa sat on the love seat, Clara in her arms, so we handed her the gifts one by one. There were knitted booties from Miss June, an embroidered baby bib from Angela, and a little handmade wooden rattle from the couple down the street. Then I handed her the last gift. It was in a small white box tied with a ribbon. Melissa looked at me, puzzled, and then slowly opened it. Inside was a silver locket. She lifted it with trembling fingers and opened the tiny clasp. On one side was a photo of Melissa as a baby, wrapped in the same crocheted blanket Clara now slept with. On the other side, a photo of Clara. 2 generations. One love. Melissa's lips parted, but no sound came. Then she pressed the locket to her chest and closed her eyes. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything," I replied. Later that afternoon, as people filtered out and the house quieted, Melissa helped me gather empty plates and crumpled napkins. Clara snoozed in the bassinet I'd set up in the sunroom. "I feel like I'm just now realizing everything you've done," Melissa said, stacking cups. I looked at her, hands paused over the sink. "I wasn't the perfect mom," I said, "but I tried, and I never stopped loving you. Even when you pulled away, I was still right here." She set the cups down and walked over to me. "I know that now. I'm sorry it took so long." We stood there for a moment in the silence, two women, two mothers, finally on the same page. Before she left, Melissa hugged me tighter than she had in years. "This felt better than any baby shower," she said. "More real. More home." And I knew what she meant. There had been no grand venue, no catered hors d'oeuvres or party favors. Just cake, love, and the quiet mending of what once felt broken beyond repair. That night, sat alone in my armchair, sipping chamomile tea, watching the tiny rise and fall of Clara's chest as she slept in her bassinet beside me. I reached over and gently touched her hand. "Welcome to the world, little one," I whispered. "You've already brought more healing than you know." Then I looked at the photo on the mantel, me holding Melissa when she was a baby. And beside it, new frame, Melissa holding Clara. A full circle journey stitched together with forgiveness, faith, and one long-awaited celebration. It didn't take long for word to spread through the family grapevine by Monday. Both of my other daughters, Zabi and Grace, were calling me non-stop. At first, I let it ring. I wasn't ready to have the same old circular conversations full of justifications and quiet disappointments. But eventually, I picked up. "Mom," Abby said, wasting no time. "Why didn't you tell us you were throwing?" Melissa, her own shower. "It wasn't a shower," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "It was a small welcome for Clara. That's all." "But still, you didn't tell us?" "We had no idea until Melissa posted those pictures. She needed something real, Abby, not just a photo op or a gift registry. She needed her mom." Silence. "Then, are you saying we didn't give her that?" "I'm saying she felt alone, and so did I," Grace called next. She was quieter, always the more sensitive of the two. But even she couldn't hide the judgment in her tone. "Why now, Mom? After everything." "I never stopped being her mother," I said. "And sometimes people just need time." So when she came around, I made space. Grace sighed. "You really think she's changed?" "I know she has." Later that evening, Melissa texted me. "Abby and Grace are blowing up my phone." "I didn't mean to stir drama," I replied. "You didn't stir anything. This was always there. They're just noticing now." She sent back a simple red heart emoji. And for once, that said more than any paragraph could. The next weekend, Abby and Grace came over. I made coffee, set out some lemon cookies, and we sat around the kitchen table like it was Thanksgiving, and nobody was talking about the turkey in the room. "Mom," Abby began, her voice measured, "we need to ask. Why didn't you tell us Melissa was coming around again? After the way she treated you." I sipped my coffee and met her eyes, because I wasn't sure it would last. I didn't want to drag you both into something fragile. But she came to me honestly, and I responded the same. "But we were the ones here all along," Grace added. "We were the ones who called you every week, sent you birthday cards, visited when Melissa didn't." I nodded, and I never took that for granted, not once. "Then why does it feel like she gets the redemption arc?" Abby snapped. The words stung. But I understood them, because she needed it. And because I did too. The truth is, there's no neat way to balance a mother's heart. You love all your children differently, but nevertheless, Abby was the responsible one. Grace was the peacemaker. Melissa. She was the storm, and maybe part of me had always been waiting for her to come back, needing to know I didn't lose her forever. "I get it," Grace said quietly. "I think I do. Anyway, you were hurting too." "Yes," I said. And when she showed up at my door asking for help, I didn't see the girl who left. I saw the woman trying to come home. By the end of that conversation, there were no big hugs or tearful reconciliations. But something shifted. The tension relaxed. The air cleared. We were mothers and daughters. Yes, but we were also women learning how to forgive in our own time. A few days later, Melissa came over again. This time, she brought Abby and Grace with her. Clara nestled in a soft sling across her chest, sleeping soundly. The three girls sat on the porch with me, sipping iced tea and watching the sun lower behind the maple trees. Abby reached over and adjusted Clara's tiny hat. "She's beautiful," she said softly. Melissa smiled, a little wary. "Thanks." Grace leaned in. "You doing okay?" Melissa paused. "Better now. I've got Mom, and I'm trying to make things right." Abby looked at me, then back at her sister. "Could, because this little girl deserves all of us." Just like that, the pieces started falling into place, not like a puzzle, but like rain after drought, slow, healing, welcome. I sat back, watching my three daughters, so different, so strong, sit together on my porch like they did when they were kids, passing popsicles and baby dolls back and forth. Only now they were grown. They had seen heartbreak and struggle. They had made choices, some proud, some painful. But they were here, together, and that meant everything. There's a kind of silence that feels earned, not the cold one that follows a fight, but the soft kind that arrives when everyone is finally at peace. That's how it felt in my house now. No tension, no forced smiles, just the creak of the porch swing, Clara's gentle coos, and my three daughters speaking to one another like sisters again. It wasn't perfect. I wasn't naive. But it was real that week. I found myself humming again while folding laundry. Cooking had taste again, not just food on a plate, but comfort in a bowl. Melissa called every other day, always asking, "Do you have time for Clara and me?" Yes, always, yes. She'd come over, baby in tow, and I'd hold Clara against my chest while Melissa took a nap or just sat in the quiet with tea in hand. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't. It didn't matter. What mattered was presence. One afternoon, while Clara napped upstairs, Melissa stood at my kitchen sink washing bottles. "You were right," she said suddenly. I looked up from peeling carrots. About what? About time and love. And what gets left behind when we chase things that don't matter. I set the peeler down. "I don't need you to say that." She turned and met my eyes. "I need to say it. You're always there and I didn't see it. I thought I was proving something by pushing you away." She swallowed hard. "But now with Clara, all I want is to be close. I want her to grow up knowing how to love people, how to forgive them, too." I walked over and hugged her. Not tightly, not desperately, just enough. "I'm proud of you," I whispered. And this time, she didn't cry. She just nodded, her head resting against mine. A few days later, we had a little brunch at my house. It's just the family, me, the girls, their partners, and a few neighbors who'd known us since the girls were toddlers running through sprinklers on the lawn. Melissa brought a homemade pie. Abby brought her famous deviled eggs. Grace brought napkins, but stayed to help with everything. And I brought out the vintage baby quilt my own mother had stitched, the one with faded pastel ducks and stars. It had been stored away for decades. I held it up. Melissa's eyes went wide. "Is that yours?" I said. "And now Clara's." She reached out and traced the edge. "Mom, this is, wow. It still smells like baby powder," Grace joked. "Or mothballs," Abby added with a grin. We all laughed. That kind of laugh, the belly-deep one that softens even old scars. Is the sound of home later. Melissa stood up and clinked her glass with a spoon. "I just want to say something," she said. The room quieted. "I know I hurt people. I've made more mistakes than I can count. But this little girl," she said, nodding to Clara, "she gave me something I didn't know I was missing. Perspective. And forgiveness." She looked at me, then her sisters, and a chance to do better. "I want to thank my mom for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself." I felt the tears rise, but I held them back. This was her moment. Abby raised her glass. "To redemption." Grace added, "2 second chances." And I finished, "To family." As the afternoon faded and the sun spilled golden across the yard, I sat back in my chair and watched the people I love lean into each other. Again laughing, arguing about board games. Passing Clara around like a sacred bundle. No, I hadn't been invited to that first baby shower, but I had something better. Home where my daughter returned, not for gifts or appearances, but for love. A space where forgiveness had room to bloom. Where my quiet heartbreak had turned slowly into something resembling peace. This wasn't revenge. This was renewal. That night, after everyone had gone and the last dish was dried, I sat on the porch alone. The stars were out. The air was warm, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a forgotten mother or a sidelined parent. I felt whole, not because everything had been fixed, but because I had chosen not to stay broken. Clara was 5 months old when she first said it. Well, not exactly in full clarity. but close enough to send shivers down my spine and stop time right in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon. I was feeding her mashed bananas in my kitchen. It's a kind of mundane moment that motherhood is built on. She had that squishy baby bib with ducks and an open mouth like a hungry bird. Say banana, sweetheart. I cooed, she gurgled, then giggled, then clear as rain, babbled, something that sounded like mama. I froze. She said it. Again, mama. The spoon clattered into the bowl. I brought my hands to my mouth, laughing and crying at the same time. It wasn't her first word babies mumble sounds, I know. But in that quiet kitchen with the light pouring through, the window and my heart swelling too big for my chest, it was a word meant for me. Later that evening when Melissa came to pick her up, couldn't stop smiling. She said it, I whispered. Melissa tilted her head, said, "What?" Called me mama. Melissa blinked, eyes wide. She did? I braced for a flicker of discomfort, maybe jealousy. But none came. Instead, Melissa smiled and reached for my hand. I'm glad, she said. You deserve that. My heart almost gave out. I'm her mom, she added. But you? You've always been the one she melts into like home. A few weeks later, something happened I'll never forget. Melissa asked if I'd come with her to a parenting support group. She was nervous. And though she didn't say it out loud, I could tell she didn't want to walk in alone. So we went. It was in the community hall of an old church where the chairs squeaked and the coffee tasted like burnt cardboard. But everyone there looked exhausted in a way that made them real. A woman named Daphne shared how her own mother had disowned her when she got pregnant at 19. Another mom, Alicia, talked about raising twins without a single relative left, alive to help her. Then Melissa stood up. My name is Melissa, she said nervously, and this is my daughter Clara. Everyone smiled. I almost lost my relationship with my mom. And if I had, I don't think I'd be standing here today. Not as the woman I want to be. She reached for my hand again. This is my mom, Evelyn. She didn't just forgive me, she mothered me while I was learning to be a mother. There were tears in more than one set of eyes that day, but the one that caught me most was my own reflection in the church window. I looked tired, weathered, but soft. Like a quilt that had been through every storm and still managed to warm someone. Melissa. Eventually, through a second baby celebration, not a shower, but a small gathering for everyone who carried us through. This time, I was the first one invited. The guest of honor, Doc Grace, brought a homemade banner that said 3 generations strong. Abby made cupcakes in the shape of baby shoes. And Melissa. She stood up in the backyard, Clara in her arms, and said, some people become moms when they give birth, others become them through love. And some, like my mother, never stopped being one, even when we tried to forget she was. Then she turned to me. Clara has 2 moms. And I'm proud of that. She handed me Clara Dot, and right there in front of everyone, Clara gripped my necklace, looked up at me with those big, bright eyes, and said it again, Mama. This time louder. This time with intention. Gasps, laughter, applause. I kissed her soft cheek and whispered, I'm right here, baby. And I was, finally, completely. Right where I belonged. I don't know what the future holds. There may be more mistakes, more tears. Time has a way of testing us again just when we think we've made it through. But I've stopped living in the ache of what was lost. I live in what was found. A daughter's return. A granddaughter's first word. A quiet strength that survived storms and sat at the table with Grace. I wasn't invited to the baby shower, but I got something better. I became the place they all return to when love needs a home.